One of the first things that I did was, there's been some question as to what does a 1/4 cent sales tax generate. The number that we used in August was 500,000. I actually went back, grabbed the last 5 years worth of actuals, plus the estimate for 2010. The 5-year actual average, if you go back over our financial reports, is 517,677, so a little over 500,000. If you include in the current estimate for this year, it's 514,000. So a 1/4 cent in the current environment, and then if you just look at estimated 2010, is 500,323, is around $500,000. So a 1/4 cent sales tax generates $500,000. The next thing that I looked at is with the 1/4 cent that's currently levied, when could we expect to stop collecting on it? Our estimate is April, and I say April understanding that when we tell a merchant in April to stop collecting it, we don't receive that April payment into June. They have until May 25th to make their April payment to the state of Kansas, and then the state of Kansas remits it back to us. So we're on a 2-month lag with the state. So our current estimate would be that at the end of April, we'll be notifying, and it really will be before the end of April. We will notify the state of Kansas to notify any of the merchants that they're collecting from in the city of Mission that sales tax will be reduced by 1/4% come May 1st and May sales. Next, a question related to an election on the 1/4 cent. The soonest that we could have it on a ballot in next year is an odd year, so there's only one general election, and it's in April. And in order to hit the April ballot, we would need to have an ordinance passed by the city council on February 15th. It has to be then certified to the county election commissioner, and I believe it's March 7th to be included on the ballot. The cost for a question that's on the general election is between $5,000 and $7,500, $5,000 and $7,500. And that's because there's already election in process, so it's simply another question. Now, it's unique in that we won't be having elections, but there are other ballot issues out there. I think the school district is voting on positions. So there are things that are being voted on, and so it can be included in the ballot. If we don't have it on the April ballot, then it's a special election or mail ballot, because there's no elections in either August or November that's currently anticipated. And given that it's an odd year, there's no state primaries or state offices that are up. So in that case, if we don't make the April ballot, then you're talking about special election or mail ballot, and the estimated cost is between $15,000 and $20,000. Special election is you have a vote in which people go to their ward and precinct and vote. A mailed ballot is one in which it's mailed to all of the registered voters in the city, and then they return it to the election commissioner by a certain date, and then the vote is tabulated. I believe, with the exception of Roland Park that passed sales tax extension at the November election, I believe Overland Park was by mail ballot 2 years ago, and I think Merriam was mail ballot last December, January. And both of those were sales tax questions that were done with mail ballot. The only other thing that I have is that the city cannot campaign for the passage of the 1/4 cent sales tax. We can provide objective information about the use of monies in terms of, you can say, we are collecting 1/4 cent to be used for streets and street improvements. We can say how much money we anticipate a 1/4 cent to generate. We can also have a sunset in terms of the period in which the tax will be levied, in which money will be collected. The only other thing to remember, that if it's a sales tax that's not dedicated to a debt issuance, that sales tax is available as part of a Star Bonds project. In a Star Bonds project, one of the rules is that if the state gives up their sales tax authority, then any sales tax authority that the city has, which isn't tied to debt in terms of an obligation that has to be paid, that too has to be thrown into the kitty and considered, as part of the overall Star Bond issue.
So if we do this, then the money is collected from the gateway will be going to the Star Bond.
Correct.
Any questions from the committee? Yes, Susan.
Mike, which has the best results, mail-in ballots or when you actually go to the polls?
I'm trying to think when a sales tax initiative has failed. The only one I can think of, I think there's one in Gardner that has in the last maybe 2 to 4 years. But outside of that, I think every sales tax initiative has passed in Johnson County, whether it was a mail ballot or general election.
So it doesn't make any difference.
Right.
Thanks.
Presently, what's our anticipated revenue from TUF for the year for 2011?
830,000.
And how does this current sales tax break down as far as state, county, and city?
This quarter cent?
No, the total that we do now.
The total that we do now?
6% goes to the state. It's 8.775%. 6% goes to the state. 1.25% comes to the city, and the balance is county and for a variety of stormwater, research triangle, public safety, all of their combined.
And yeah, it's county general.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I guess it's over.
So in effect, if we had the ability to pass a quarter cent sales tax, it could pay for 60% of the TUF.
Yeah, it would make up 60% of that revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in one way you could say it's a substitution for the TUF, but to fix our roads is estimated, the city contributed 1.5 million. So if you want to take 500 from the sales tax away from the TUF, you have to make that up somewhere else.
I'm sorry, you lost me.
Well, if the city needs to get to 1.5 million locally
Well,
to fix our roads.
well, if the city can do it on 1 million,
Well, if the city can do it on 1 million, we do it on 1 million.
well,
But the current estimates aren't 1 million.
current estimates, what are they proposing? I mean, here it is, to see these delightful pictures on what they want to do with Johnson Drive down here, with these median strips and all this other stuff.
Well,
I mean,
there must be some misunderstanding with the pictures on the wall in the community center. Those are concept drawings that came from the Downtown Visioning Committee, which looks at an overall picture of what downtown could be.
Exactly.
But when it comes time for this council to design the road to hire an engineer to design the road next spring.
well, this council already has decided to spend $5 million on turning it all into 3 lanes when it can still be 4 lanes and fix the
Let me
connectors.
finish, Will. What I was going to finish saying is that when this council goes to hire a transportation engineer to design Johnson Drive, we're not going to hire, you want to hire a transportation engineer to design all those other fancy things that you're talking about. That would not be part of the TUF funds or any other transportation fund, sales tax whatsoever. You have to separate the two.
So no TUF is going to go to any nicety, it's just to the basics?
Well, we don't pay TUF on markets or parks or anything like that. TUF goes for the street and the curbs.
And that's why it's dedicated and it's
Yes.
not part of the general fund.
So TUF could then be used for what was done, changing Johnson Drive into 3 lanes down there,
The width of the road,
changing it.
yeah, the width of the road is the design of the road. That's what the traffic engineer will hold.
Well-
You're correct.
And the exorbitant sidewalk that's along there, right? Tough could be used to,
No.
Well, the sidewalk, I mean, that's up to the council to decide what we want to fund and not fund. The sidewalk is transportation.
Well,
Now,
the
you may
count-
not-
the-
you may not walk, but there's a lot of people who do walk.
walk a hell of a lot more than you think.
Okay, the sidewalk is part of transportation, but that doesn't mean that when we go do the construction project on Johnson Drive between Knoll and Lamar, that we will or will not fund any sidewalk improvements and what those may be. That's-
I'm just saying the proven track record of decisions that have been made in the past has been to spend money like you got an unlimited credit card.
Who are you speaking to, Will? You've been part of this council when decisions were made as well. Don't
Not
go
when it
there
came-
like
no,
you're
not
there
when it
and we're
came to
all
any of
over
that
here.
stuff.
I beg your pardon?
Not when it came to Knoll. I wasn't on the council to approve Knoll.
Okay, and what you basically said, in theory, is we spend things on all kinds of things. That didn't tell me Knoll. If you're referring to just Knoll and we have a disagreement, that's fine. But let's be concrete about what you think we're doing, spending money.
Well, Debbie, if I may, I think the conversation here is about the sales tax for streets, which gets into funding street improvements. You extrapolate that into using the example on the wall down the hallway here of all these other niceties that some folks in the city may or may not want. That's not the topic at hand here. The topic at hand is fixing our streets.
But how are the residents going to know that the money's going to be spent wisely?
That's obviously a subjective opinion.
It certainly
It's
is.
not an objective opinion. As it relates to transportation, if you have a dedicated source of money, it has to go to that dedicated source, which in this instance is transportation.
That is correct.
If it's not dedicated.
But then is anybody on the rest of this council interested in lowering the top if the sales tax gets approved?
Well, I can't speak for other council members since I've spoken up and tried to clarify.
I've heard nobody else express any kind of opinions whatsoever.
Well,
And I don't know what to think.
if I may, Will.
I mean, silence just simply means you're just going along with the mainstream.
If I may, Will, and that takes me back to my initial question to you when you were asking about can sales tax reduce tough. Theoretically, sure it could, but you ultimately have to get to that $1.5 million. So if you say, well, let's add $500,000 of sales tax to the kitty, let's take that out of tough, we're right back to the $830,000 number we're at right now. Where are you going to fill in the gap with the rest? So you can theoretically do that, but you've got to find the rest of the money somewhere else if you want to take it away from tough.
That is, if
If you want to get your roads.
if you want to have to, if you think you have to spend that much money.